I'm so excited that we are finally here together, connecting, spreading this message. Yeah, where do we even begin?
Yeah, well, first, thank you for initiating this. What was the spark for you to initiate this?
I just have so much passion towards this work, what we're going to be speaking about today. Everyone needs to know this. Everyone needs to know the work and the inner work, and just to know that there's a life of freedom beyond the pain that we're all carrying, and that there is a life of pure magic. I just felt a podcast was such a divine way to spread that message and just really talk about our own journeys and our own experiences too, in the hopes that people listening can really take something from the information what we can give. Just really putting it out there to help as many people as we can. I feel like this will be such a powerful way to spread our message.
Yeah. And we're also in a program together, aren't we?
We are. So me and Sam both guide clients through this healing program to embark on a profound journey of empowerment, realizations, and just really a deeper understanding of themselves and a deeper understanding of their wounds and how their wounds can be affected them in ways that they don't even know. How their wounds can be acting out in their life, creating the same cycles, triggers, and yet just really guiding our beautiful clients through their healing journey and showing them the road to really step into that awakening.
And so the program's host, isn't it?
Yes.
That's the program that we've met in.
Yes.
But we're actually both from Liverpool.
We are.
And we've got so much in common.
So much in common. I feel like we've connected so well because we are so passionate about helping others, and we know that we have a mission to complete into helping as many people. So we really have connected on such a gorgeous sisterhood. And yeah, I'm really excited for our partnership and what we can bring to everyone. So the program that we take our clients through is called the Healers Embodiment Program. And it's a 7-week intense self-transformation program. Each week we work through the chakras, so the emotional body. We unblock each chakra using a variety of techniques: coaching, emotional release, meditation. Sam does a lot of the quantum meditations as well. Do you want to explain a little bit about the quantum side of things?
Yeah. So on the program, it's not just a personal transformation program, it's also a coach's program. There's many different layers to it. And as part of that, you are taught by me on how to do quantum coaching. So the quantum really helps us get out of the mind and into the subconscious and tune into the limitless, infinite potential of all that could be and all that is. And we'll definitely talk a little bit more about that. But first, it'll be good to really talk and connect of like who we are and what brought us here and our journeys, like our personal journeys, and get a little bit vulnerable today.
Yes, let's be raw.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's be raw.
We were saying, wasn't we, like how raw are we going?
How raw do you go? Being so vulnerable that we show all sides and all parts of ourselves, because really until you can accept all parts of yourself and you can really accept the bad parts, the ugly parts, as well as the amazing parts, it's until you move into that acceptance is then when you can move into the unconditional love, the inner unconditional love. But to be able to find that acceptance, you have to move through the pain of it. You have to grieve through the pain of whatever it is that you've been turning away from, whether that be your fear, your unsafety, or your shame. A lot of us do have shame that we just haven't processed, we haven't dealt with, we haven't faced. We turn away from and we disconnect because we've been brought up and conditioned to believe that it's bad, that them parts of us are wrong. And because we are conditioned to believe that, we completely isolate them parts and disconnect to them parts, which then leaves us in this disconnected state. And we are then unable to move into that healing and move into that love and light within ourselves. And until we are able to find that love and light within, we will then always struggle to find it on the outside, because really the universe will attract to you whatever's going on inside. So if you have maybe abandonment wounds from a young child, or, real self-worth wounds, you will always attract that in your life in some way, whether that be relationships. If you don't feel that love and light inside, that might look like always being insecure in relationships. Or if you have wounds of maybe rejection from when you're a child, you will always struggle even in financial situations, because you won't feel that you're worthy to receive the abundance.
How has that impacted you? Have you experienced that directly? So everything, obviously what we're sharing, like we've gone through our own deep process with all of this, which is why we're able to speak from this wisdom.
Yes.
Because it's not until you've moved through an experience that you can then truly understand and have that perspective. So going back before you were on this path,
yes,
like who was you then? And
yes.
did you experience that?
I also think it's important to mention, until you've moved through all the pain, all the shame, all the guilt, all these ugly parts, and really face everything what you've been running away from, only then can you hold that space for others. And as you say, it connects you to that inner wisdom. But yeah, I suppose for me, I looked after myself. I worked out, I ate well, all that kind of side of me was good. But it come to a point where I was just noticing the same cycle to be repeated. And it's not so obvious where you think, right, okay. I mean, it can be, it can be so obvious as you are repeating the same cycle in the relationships that you're attracting, the men that you're attracting. But it doesn't have to be so obvious like that. The cycles can repeat in different ways. So for me, I kept noticing the same cycle repeating. And I turned 30 last year. And I thought, I need to look within, because this can't be a coincidence, Like I really need to start looking within, and I need to figure out what is going on. I knew that I had something to break, but I didn't understand. I didn't understand consciousness. I didn't understand triggers. I didn't understand wounds. I didn't understand really any of this work. I thought I had healed from a really toxic relationship because, I listened to a few podcasts and, you're with the girls and life seems, better. But on a deep cellular level, I had not healed and I didn't understand what it meant. And I think that's why, and the same for you, I know that we feel so passionate about this work because so many people will be going through this repetitive cycle. It's so common to point the finger, this is just my luck, like I'm with the same type of guy again, or, I can't seem to do well in work, or I've lost my job again, them same cycles repeating. We live in such an unconscious state that we don't actually realize why that's happening, or that it's happening because of ourselves. And then when you really understand that, you can change everything. You can literally change anything you're not happy about in your life. You can change that by looking within and digging so deep yeah, it's so uncomfortable. It's so painful, which is why we run away from it.
Yeah,
which is
facing them
why
ugly
we just
sides.
I don't want to listen to that.
That's not me.
That's not me.
It's
That's not
them.
me. Yeah, it's all them. It's always them.
Yeah, the
Because
blame cycle.
it's the blame game, isn't it?
Yeah.
And while you keep pointing the finger, you will always repeat them same cycles, always. So yeah, for me, it was just really recognizing that, okay, I'm in this cycle again. Let's do something about this because it needs to stop,
Yeah.
I remember when I reached out to host, it was crazy because it was just like one video that popped up what really aligned to me. And I was like, right, okay, what's this? Yeah, I messaged, and I remember messaging saying, I don't actually know what I'm messaging for. I don't know what I need. I just don't know like what I need to say in this message, but I just know I'm really being called to send this to send this message on Instagram. I'm really being called to ask for help, seek this help, because I know there's so much more. I know there's so much more to understand, and there's so much more to life. So yeah, that got me on my journey, my real healing journey. And then when I'd done this program, I was my jaw was on the floor with all the information. I was like, how do people not know this?
Yeah.
How have we lived so long without this information? In fact, we have been brought up with the complete opposite information.
Yeah, we've got so lost.
So lost.
Yeah.
So lost, and it really is human suffering.
Yeah.
And generational trauma. Everyone is just so lost and disconnected, but on such an unconscious level. And that's why I feel so drawn to speak and help people, because I was that person and I thought life was good and everything was fine, and but it's really until you start looking within, you just realize, wow, I've got a lot of wounds there that need to be felt. I've got a lot of emotion that needs to be felt and to feel. Emotion is energetic information on a cellular level. So every emotion that we don't allow ourselves to process and feel, it stores in our emotional body.
Yeah.
Which will then act out in triggers, play out in different ways of our lives. And we are in control of all of that. We can control it all. We've just got to do the inner work and feel through the pain, grieve through these wounds, what we're carrying. And the super interesting thing is, my main wounds, what I was carrying, it didn't come up from my subconscious up until about week 5 of the program. So it just really goes to show that when we suppress things so much into that shadow part of ourselves, into our subconscious, deep, the brain won't remember their memories. The brain won't remember that straight away. And it does take the consistent work, the kinds of willing to learn about this and to widen your consciousness, it will enter, and you then can process it and okay, let's deal with this. And it is just about peeling back the layers and really feeling into it. But at the start, when I joined Hostess program, all the childhood stuff was just not for me. I was like, no, I had an amazing childhood. Like, nothing come up for me. It didn't land in my consciousness at the time. And then, wow, as the weeks went on, my consciousness widened and it all started coming up for me. I was like, wow, I really have been carrying all these wounds that I had no idea I was carrying. And then when that penny dropped, it made so much sense of why I was then attracting the same type of things happening, because it's how what was going on inside me. And the way the universe works, everything's a mirror. So it's okay having these manifestations. We're taught now to write down all our manifestations and goals and what we want. And yeah, that's great. Definitely it works to a certain point. However, if we're carrying wounds of where we don't feel worthy and we don't feel good enough, then we will never ever be able to attract our dream life. So that's kind of how I got on the program, and it's been such a profound, amazing experience. Every single person needs this.
Yeah.
Seriously.
I know. And it's like we cannot see it until
can't see it.
you go into the shadows, which is
Yeah.
why they call it shadow work.
Yes.
And we can only see 10% with our conscious brain. So much is happening in the unconscious and in the non-conscious.
Yes.
And in the body holds memory. Like it never forgets. And, I'll go into a little bit about the quantum in a minute, but like the quantum field is like everything is happening in this now moment. So when you tune into that awareness that everything is happening in this now moment, so all possibilities can ever exist and all possibilities will always exist in this now moment. So we only experience time linearly as we move through time as a human, but it's also an illusion. So on some level,
time is such an illusion, by the way.
Yeah,
Isn't it?
It all exists.
Yeah.
It all exists now. So if you've had an emotional event, an emotional imprint, an emotional trauma that's happened at somewhere in the time on your timeline, and you've created a belief system around that, then your consciousness is then attached to that. And then you then start to create your reality from that level of belief system, from that level of awareness.
Yeah.
And it's almost like we have these rose tinted glasses and it filters things. And when you start to look within and to feel the emotions and let them move, because I loved what you just said then as well about energy. Emotion is just an energetic, what did you say?
Emotions are energetic information
Energetic
on a cellular
information on a cellular level.
So
that was
true.
powerful. But I always say like emotions are energy in motion, energy moving through the body. And that's how I always explain Reiki and what Reiki does and how that works. So when we don't move the emotion, the energy gets stuck and stagnated, and everything has a vibration. So everything's vibrating at a particular frequency for it to be in harmony. So when it's out of harmony, just like music, just like a tune,
Samantha Tune.
just like just like a tune, you know when it's out of tune, it doesn't sound very pleasant.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel nice.
No.
That's what happens with our emotion. If we haven't processed it in a healthy way, it gets stored in the body.
Yes.
So then it creates disorder, chaos in the cells. It creates disease.
Yes.
And it creates drama.
It does.
Because you're now an energetic match to that vibrational thing.
Yes.
So it not only affects you on a physical level, it affects you on an emotional level, a mental level, and you then become a victim of your circumstances.
Yes.
Believing that everything is happening to you when really everything is happening for
It's
you.
happening for you.
Because each thing that can happen in reality is an opportunity for you to feel into that trigger.
Yes.
And to what that trigger is trying to show you.
Yes.
And often within society where we're not processing the emotion. So like we'll feel anger and we'll either lash out or we won't want to show it.
Yeah.
And we'll shut it down. So just for instance, like if using anger as an example, you're holding on to that, you then either swallow it or you project it. You're not then processing that.
No.
But in that moment when you felt that anger, that could have been an opportunity for you to acknowledge it.
Sit with it.
Okay, right now I'm feeling angry.
Yes.
Why am I feeling angry?
And dig deeper.
Yeah.
Because we're taught that anger is bad. We're taught that these emotions are bad, to be sad, to be angry, jealous. We've, been brought up, you're not allowed to feel that way. You're not allowed to feel angry. You're not allowed to feel sad because they are deemed as negative emotions, bad emotions. But then what that happens is it conditions us to completely detach them parts and not allow ourselves to feel that because it's wrong to feel that. So even that, the emotion of anger and jealousy, it's such a powerful emotion. When we feel that in our bodies, it's always because it's trying to communicate to us. There's a deeper level of something what needs to be looked at. And I love what you said there about triggers. Now when I didn't understand triggers, I didn't understand triggers, but now I see them as such an opportunity of growth. And it really is the universe shining a light on, okay, this is what you need to look into.
Yeah.
You know, I've been triggered by something, and rather than just thinking, oh, like, you know, let's just ignore that, just really sitting with it and, okay, what is this trigger trying to show me? What is this trigger trying to, you know, the part of me that needs to be looked at and to be healed and to be felt? Because really that's what healing is. It's to feel into every single part to then find that acceptance. And it really is feeling your way to freedom, you know? So yeah, triggers are a good thing. Triggers are powerful, because the more you acknowledge the trigger, the more you will heal them deep parts of yourself.
It's really given us a way to feel into them parts of ourselves that we've fragmented from.
Yes.
Because it's what you were saying then as well. It's like when we've made it bad,
Yeah,
we then create shame.
we do.
And I think as women, especially in Liverpool, I feel there is a very strong shame culture
100%.
where people don't express what they're truly feeling.
They're scared to express.
Yeah.
People are frightened to express.
Yeah.
Not only their feelings, but who they really are, their authentic
their true
self.
Yeah.
And it's so sad.
Yeah.
But until you come out of that, or in fact, it's until you feel the shame.
Yeah.
It's until you feel what that feels like to be shamed, then can you move through it. And you can accept it, and then you really do step into that authentic self, and you're able to speak your truth, and you're able to be who you're meant to be and who you really truly want to express.
Yeah.
But to get to that place, you have to move through the real painful, you know, ugly, bad parts of ourselves.
Yeah.
And then once you've moved through all that, no one could ever shame you again.
No.
Literally.
Yeah.
Because you're so okay with every part of you, and you've fully accepted it, and you just come to this state of pure inner power, isn't it? It is.
Pure
it's that
power.
pure inner power.
Yeah, that's the solar plexus where we really hold our confidence and
Yes.
self-worth.
Yes.
But then when you're stuck in judgment of others because you've not processed your own shame, then you just disempower yourself continuously.
Yes.
So you therefore then attract that reality time and time again.
Yes. And when Sam's talking about the solar plexus, as I mentioned in the programme, each week we work on a different chakra. So the first week we work on the root chakra, which is blocked by our unsafety and our fears, you know.
Yeah, the abandonment wound.
And the abandonment wound, which might not land, because to me it didn't land straight away. But in life, this can play out as feeling really anxious or scattered or, ungrounded. So if you feel like you are living your life in this anxious state and you don't really know why, you can't put your finger on it, or it's, you're having these ups and downs, you're quite scattered, you've probably got a lot of wounds in your root chakra, isn't it?
And also self-abandonment.
Yeah.
Is when you promise yourself to do something, but then you keep abandoning yourself. You abandon your needs. You abandon yourself, basically.
Yeah.
And so when you keep abandoning yourself, you then create mistrust, and then you create scenarios of abandonment.
Yes. And what's really interesting as well is speaking about abandoning ourselves really links in with the enmeshment trauma. And what enmeshment trauma is when we, as young children, we're parented by our mums and dads who are living life in their triggers and their traumas, because obviously this is generational. If we're a young child that's experienced being parented by parents who live in their traumas and wounds, then we will definitely have experienced enmeshment trauma. So this is where we have to cater for our parents' needs over ours. In the doing so of that, we basically disconnect and disown our identity, really, which will then cause us to abandon ourselves and create so much shame, which is then when we move into the solar plexus, where our shame is held and blocked by. And when we carry shame, when our solar plexus is blocked by shame, that prevents us from stepping up in the world. It prevents us from, it stops our confidence, and we have really low self-worth, and it stops us from even doing things like this, you know, speaking in front of the camera and, you know, getting on social media, or say if you've created a business and you really need to step up and be the face of that business, you never will be able to while you're carrying so much shame. But again, in the unconscious mind, if you think, I don't think I'm carrying shame, you know, I don't think I am, nothing's really crazy happening.
People can't see it.
You can't see it, and it's until you move through the layers where then it will come up and you think, oh gosh, there's so much there that needs to be felt, and it's so uncomfortable. Through feeling it, you will be able to step up and you'll be able to be this powerful being.
Yeah, which is your birthright.
Yes,
it's all of our birthright.
It is.
Like, we come into this world completely untouched, innocent.
Just unconditional love.
Yeah.
Beings of unconditional love.
Exactly. And we just absorb the world that we're around by our conditioning.
Yes.
And when you look at a child, their imagination is just so pure.
So pure.
They are so close to God.
They are.
They are
the closest.
Their imagination is because they see and feel and know the world as multidimensional. Yet as we grow up and we become an adult, we forget that we are multidimensional beings.
Yes.
That is not just this tangible world, and that our imagination is a very vital skill to creating the worlds. They don't suppress their emotions.
No.
If they want a tantrum, they will just have a tantrum and they will let the emotion move.
Yes.
As we grow up, we lose this from the world that we're around.
We do. And it all gets messed up because we're then not allowed to tantrum. You know, we're not allowed to be angry. We're not allowed to show our emotions as children and express how we're feeling. It's really powerful to understand that when we are suppressing our own emotions, we then suppress everyone's emotions around us, including our children.
Yeah.
So this is really important when, you know, we do have young developing children. As parents, just even recognizing, are you allowing them to feel what they're feeling? And it could be the simplest things, like, I know I was doing this, you know, and when the penny dropped for me, wow, the guilt and the emotion that I felt. But because I was so suppressed, say if my little boy would fall over, you know, be like, you don't need to cry, you're okay, you're strong, you don't need to cry. And obviously it was coming from such an innocent place. But straight there, I'm suppressing his emotions to then where he's like bottled that up and he's like, yeah, no, I am fine. And, you know, we then, that is me conditioning him to suppress his emotions. And when that penny dropped, wow, that was so painful. I was like, I can't believe I've been parenting that way. And now it's anything. It's like, are you okay? Do you need to cry? It's like, you know, it's, well, like, how do you feel? Just feel into it. And it just creates this deep connection on such a healthy level where they feel validated and they feel like it's okay to express how they're feeling. So I don't know, maybe for example, if your child's having a tantrum or, you know, feeling really angry, as parents, it's so easy to tell them off and shout at them, again, highlighting that this emotion is wrong and this emotion is bad to be felt. But really just trying to change that perspective and being like, okay, I can see you're angry. You know, that must be painful. Like, talk to me.
Yeah.
Tell me how you're feeling. Tell me how I can help. And it just creates such a healthy relationship for them to be able to express and feel their emotions. And I guarantee now, if you do have a child that maybe does tantrum quite a lot, they're so frustrated because they're not being allowed to express. So the more you engage in this healthy release of emotion, I guarantee you now that you'll notice their tantrums you know, level down and you know, they'll be able to be who they are because they're not having to disconnect from these parts of themselves. These parts are crucial because in that reality where they're having that tantrum, they're going through a painful experience. You know, they're going through, even as children, like whatever it is, something in their bodies is acting out. They don't just do it because they're, you know, being a little brat or whatever, you know, as you said, like we are born as unconditional love. So they're actually going through a painful experience.
Yeah.
And it's really powerful to just recognize that and be that space for them. Just be that safe space where they can feel that and they can release it. Emotions take, is it like 60 to 90 seconds to release out the body? So the more you create that space and the more you allow them to express, the easier, even easier parent will be.
Yeah.
You know?
And children know when you're lying as well.
For sure.
Like that's a big one.
Yeah. We spoke about this the other day, didn't we, actually? And it was so interesting what you told me as well.
Yeah. The behaviour, because they're so close to God, they can feel energy.
Yes.
So when you're feeling an emotion and then you go, I'm fine, they feel
that was so me.
That, well, she's saying it's fine, but something feels different. So it must be me.
Yeah.
Or
then they blame themselves.
And then they create these internal dialogues. So they're complete sponges to the world around us in so many ways.
And the internal dialogue that they create is, oh, well, it must be my fault. You know, it must be because of me. And it really does create that self-blame.
Yeah.
Which turns into self-punishment.
Yeah.
Which then leads to completely disconnecting.
Yeah. And then you teach them, when you're feeling not okay, tell people you're okay. That's literally what you teach, because they model. They're just absorbing the whole world. Like they're absorbing everything. And all of this work, it's all inner child work. Constantly going in and just grabbing her hand or grabbing his hand, or that little being in you and going like, are you okay? I'm here.
I've got you.
I've got you.
I've got you.
Like having that little internal dialogue 100%. With yourself.
I hadn't done any inner child healing or connection before this. Now I've got a little picture of myself on the mirror, and I tell her I love her all the time, because that's what she needed. And, you know, you could be listening now and thinking, oh, well, this doesn't really resonate because I had an amazing childhood. That's the place where I come from. But for you to have a childhood experience where you were allowed to feel your emotions is so rare. You know, it's so rare. And if you did, amazing. High, if not most of us, have experienced some type of emotional neglect, emotional abandonment, which then stores. And it's until you really connect with your inner child through, you know, meditations and coaching, you then can meet her with what she needed. You can meet her with what she never got. And it could be as simple as love, hug, you know, to be held, to feel safe. And once you start connecting to your inner child, you then begin to create this profound unconditional love within. And you begin to almost reparent your childhood experiences. You become the parent for her. You become that safe space for her, what she never had.
Yeah.
And at that point, you have this, or you start this beautiful connection with your little self that brings you so much power. Because when you connect back to that, when you connect back to her, and, you know, I like to see it as like, she's there, she's always there. She needs you. So when you start to give her that, your life starts to change. Everything around you starts to change.
Yeah.
When you start really delving into these wounds of what your inner child experienced.
It's amazing.
It's so powerful.
Yeah. And it's like, you're talking about that now, it's just made me think about within the quantum field, that little version of us is always there.
Yes.
But there's also lots of different versions of us as well. That's there, and that's there for us to tap into. And with this work, you can tune into future versions of you.
Yes.
And have these very profound interactions, and it's all done through visualization and feeling and really tuning into the multiple dimensions that can coexist. And when you can have that internal connection and experience, it creates new neural pathways. So then it starts to become a memory. And so the body then remembers it because you have these experiences.
Yes.
Yeah. So when you imagine something and you feel the emotions of it, it will create the same neural pathways as if it's already happened.
That's insane.
So that's why what we can do in this, in the process is if we've had a memory that was quite unpleasant, you can go back in and reparent it.
Yes.
And you create more safety where there wasn't enough safety. But then you can also go forward to a higher timeline. And so, I'd love to talk a little bit about timelines, because every choice we have puts us onto a timeline. If we had a choice to do this podcast, which is going to put us on a different timeline, because there's going to be people that are going to listen, that are going to see this, and it's going to influence, and an opportunity could open up, and boom, 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 and you've got a timeline. There's also a timeline that we didn't choose to do this. We didn't choose to do the work. We chose to stay unconscious. We chose to stay in that toxic relationship. And that version of us is still here, is still existing. They still exist in the energetic imprint within all that is. So we get to experience what timeline we want to experience as a soul. So for every choice, there is an extension and a fragmentation of opportunities and potential timelines that can exist. So when we do this work, we are uprooting the shadow aspects, the lower vibrations, freeing ourselves from these patterns that have kept us on these lower timelines. And we are now more conscious and aware to make healthier choices for ourselves. They don't have as much power over us. And then you continue to do that work. And it's little stepping stones. But I always say sometimes with this, you can quantum leap. So quantum leaping is like being on one timeline and then just like completely catapulting and going all the way forward into a higher timeline where you're like, wow, is this my reality now?
Like, how has this happened?
Yeah. Because like my personal journey was, I was in Liverpool and then I knew I had to do something different and I didn't know what that was. I just knew I needed to get out of here. So I did. I went to Australia and I left. And it was only being in Australia that I was able to have these new understandings, because
do you feel like you was escaping when you went to Australia? Was you escaping something? Because that's what they kind of say, don't they, about sort of even holidays, like traveling and holidays. It's like if you're that person to, even without realizing it, feeling a little bit of stress, right? Let's book a holiday. You know, you are escaping. You are escaping,
and people do
what you need to feel into it and realize. So was that your situation, or did you already done a lot of inner work anyway?
No work at all.
Right, okay.
No.
So maybe subconsciously then?
So when you say that, it's like yes and no.
Yeah.
It was me destiny. And I only realised, like, I only say yes because now that I've been brought back after 8 years, like it was completely not my choice to come back home. It was only that, again, we have the divine plan and then we have free will. So we have our choices that we get to choose to make, but then we also have the divine plan. That's our destiny written in the stars. And so I consciously was trying to stay in Australia, trying to get a visa, trying to make it work. After 8 years, it got to the point and the universe was saying, like, go home. We need you to go home now. And this was after my consciousness had been expanded.
And did you feel that energetically, or was it just like because it was, you tried to stay and nothing was working?
Both.
Okay.
So, you know, I explain it like this. You know, when you're in a relationship and you know it's coming to an end.
Yes.
So I was in a relationship with Australia, and for like that last year, we were like, oh yeah, this is great. Oh no, maybe not. Oh yeah, this is great. Oh no, maybe not. So
we're in a toxic relationship with Australia.
Yeah, it was in that
Basically.
push-pull, and you were like, oh, we know it's come to an end, but I love you.
Yeah.
So like I actually booked a flight and didn't get on the flight. I said, show me a sign, and I got the sign. And I booked the flight and things started aligning. And I always say, like, when you're going in the right direction, you know you're supported because things will support you.
It just flows so
it will just flow. So I booked the flight and I was being supported. And then because it was so great, I was like, I'm not going home. So I didn't get on the plane. I didn't go. and then it slowly but surely stopped aligning again. And so I went and I actually done some deep shadow work because I got ghosted by this guy and it brought up a lot in me.
Okay.
So he like just stopped communicating but was watching my Instagram. That triggered something so deep within me that I was like, I've done a lot of work on myself, but I am feeling so insecure. I'm feeling like so ugly. Like I just brought up so much. So I ended up doing this shadow work which was actually called Quantum Leap. And that helped me kind of navigate the transition to see more clearly. And I was suppressing with weed. I was smoking every day and I just was numbing my feelings really.
Yeah.
I wasn't really feeling. But there was just something bigger than me that was like, you need to go home. You need to go and root back to your roots. You need to go back to your roots. And I was supported in it. So I trusted it.
Yeah.
So within 4 weeks, I saw a double rainbow and I was like, okay, I booked
Now
the
it's
flight.
time.
Booked the flight and landed back at home. And again, things were just aligning. And it's been 2.5 years now. And I've been back at home and yeah, I've saw that there was parts of me that was definitely escaping because I needed to come back and to reclaim my inner child, like these fragmented parts that I could never, ever, ever have healed being on the other side of the world. I've had to be around my family. I've had to see their patterns, their conditioning to see me. I've had to be triggered.
And also even, I was going to say that, being triggered by family to then heal them parts.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about the escaping sides of it as well, because that can play out in so many ways, alcohol, drugs, even just external things, buying expensive clothes or,
shopping.
Or
scrolling.
Yeah.
Posting for validation.
Yeah. I feel like it's so common.
Yeah.
It's
normalized.
It's normalized. And I know you had an experience as well, or you had an experience where you were in that phase of running away. So I don't know if you want to touch on that, just to kind of let people sort of be able to resonate, because it is so normal, and it's okay as well. It's okay, and it's not to be like ashamed about. It's absolutely okay, but we need to recognize that it's just filling a void, and we need to feel the void rather than fill it. And so many of us, because we don't know how to feel, we don't know how, we've never been created a safe space to feel, and it's so painful. So we just we fill the void.
Yeah.
And that can look like so many different things. So what was your experience with
escaping? Yeah. Mine started when I was 12.
Wow.
I had my first drink, which put me in hospital.
Really?
Yeah, I got my stomach pumped.
Oh no.
And then a year later, happened again. I went out, got drunk, back in hospital. And then I was recreational drinking and like while I was in school. It happened again. It happened the third time.
What, in hospital?
In hospital
really?
Again. I nearly died. One of them as well.
Wow.
Like my body temperature dropped down and I'd banged my head that many times. Like they had to keep me in overnight to watch me because I'd banged my head. I've actually been hospitalised 6 times as a youth due to substance and alcohol misuse. So there's been like another 2 times where like I took tablets and just been so dehydrated the next day, and I've just thought I was dying. And
that must have been so scary as well.
Yeah, but I just kept doing it.
Kept doing it. And you probably didn't realise why you kept doing it either at the time, It just felt that's just what you needed to do because you was escaping something.
Yeah, that's it. And I was obviously taking things to an extreme, and because I was with a toxic partner, I was toxic.
Of course.
So, but I couldn't see my toxic.
That is
I couldn't see how toxic I was because he was so obviously more toxic than me.
This is such a powerful point as
isn't
well,
it?
Sam.
So I was always looking at his behaviour and his actions, and I was like, but I don't do that.
Yes.
I'm not to that extreme. And it's not until that partner had gone, years back gone, and I'd been looking at myself, and then different things would pop up, different partner, different patterns, or just being single. Like I had, a good couple of years alone, like self-love, like just going
So
within
important.
and just, it would still play out in different ways. You know, it was very interesting.
Because even at that point of this being alone and self-love, you hadn't probably moved through the pain and the shame yet,
No.
you know? So you can't ever reach that pure self-love until you move through them parts of yourself.
Yeah.
And it's so important as well too, like what you said about, you know, having a toxic partner. Now, if we have a toxic partner, there is a part of us that is toxic.
100%.
Because we mirror the parts in us in relationships. So this is probably quite a hard pill to swallow for a lot of people. I know it was for me when I first heard it, and I was quite in denial. It's really just being accountable for yourself and your wounds, which then makes you accountable for how you've actually been and how you showed up. So yeah, really, really powerful and important message is, if you are in a toxic relationship or, you know, narcissistic or anything, there is a part of you that is toxic or that is a narcissist. And that might even just be a narcissist to yourself.
Yeah.
You know, but there is a part of you somewhere what is mirroring that back.
Yeah.
And until you figure this out, until you basically unpack that wound, you will still always attract that in a relationship.
Yeah. I know. It's so powerful.
Yeah.
Well, what's been your most profound lesson then that you've learned along this path or along this journey?
You just need to feel it. Don't push anything away. Feel it all. I was the queen of suppression. Like, I'm fine. You know, I'm fine. It's all fine. When I would say I'm fine, I would think, oh, I'm actually not fine. Because obviously I would believe that I was fine, you know? And that's just because I'd completely disconnected. So I was so disconnected from my emotions because I was actually in a situation where I lost my dad when I was pregnant. I got told to basically, I need to shut off my emotions, which by the way was the worst advice that I could ever get. But I got told, you know, you can't get upset really because you've got a baby inside you and they're going to feel it, and you know, it might cause them upset or, you know, just crazy loads of whatever. As a mum, I just wanted to protect this baby. So I was like, okay, this person's right. Yeah, no, okay, yeah, definitely. And I just switched completely, like literally like a switch, just disconnected from all emotion. Wow, that is such an unhealthy place to be, especially, you know, through a loss as well, a death.
Yeah.
It obviously stored so much, and I obviously didn't realise it at the time, but I was just so disconnected, and that then caused me to, you know, self-sabotage and act out, and I was just so triggered all of the time. I was just living in this disconnected numbness. It's just so important to feel your emotions, literally. Every single emotion that arises in the body, let it be. You know, even if you have to stop the car while you're driving and just like take a couple of deep breaths and just allow that emotion to be, really lean into that emotion, because then it just dissolves and it doesn't store, and you know, you're then a little bit better, you know, and an extra 2% better, more healed. And yeah, just that's probably say the best bit of advice, if I could give in one sentence, is to allow your emotions to be felt.
Yeah.
What
Love
about you?
that.
What would you say?
Most profound lesson I've learned. You are your higher self.
Okay, love this.
So you can tune into a higher version of you that is connected to source, which we are never not connected to source. We are never not that.
No.
But we can become and feel quite disconnected from that through life.
Of course.
And when you're able to tune into your higher self, you're able to tune into this divine wisdom.
Yes.
Like, you know, what we felt. It's like on our session that you gave to me, like my human self forgets sometimes that I am my higher self.
Yes.
And the wisdom the wisdom that's there, this divine intelligence that is always downloading into us, that is within our womb, within our heart, within ourselves as being human beings. Like this information it's all there.
Yes.
And we can become so disconnected from that and mistrusting of it and lose our path.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get swayed and pulled into other people's opinions and their lives and their stories. But when you remember that you are your higher self,
You are.
like
She
you
exists.
only you have, like know where you're going.
Yes.
Like it's through your intuitive ability to feel, to know, and to really tune in and to trust. So the more we tune in to our higher self, the more that we'll be guided. And
And for anyone watching as well, when, you know, they might be like, how are we going to tune into our higher selves? I believe it's done mostly through meditations, because when we still the mind and we connect to our body, and, you know, we tap into that inner peace beneath the mind, and we are so present in the now, which then connects us to our being, which connects us to God, you know, the universe, our higher self, whatever you want to call it. It connects us to our inner power, and we are only able to access that through the art of meditation, you know, whether that be quantum, whether that be inner child, or even just meditating in silence. That's something what I have been doing recently.
I do it every day.
Wow, the downloads, what I get, the information of even just what I need to do next, like this podcast, I had that download through the silent meditation, and it said, you need to do a podcast with Sam. So it's like, right, okay, let's reach out. And that's then put us on this new timeline, you know? So it really is, it's so real, because the messages, what you can get sent and you can download, are messages from your higher self, from the higher power, from your guides, you know, the universe. And it's just prioritizing that time to meditate, to switch off the mind, because there's a vast realm of intelligence beyond mind and thought, you know, and thought is just a tiny aspect of that.
Yeah.
So a lot of us can get lost in the mind, and we almost become a slave to our mind.
Identified with the mind.
And it's so important to know that the mind isn't us, it's our conditioning, you know. Part of the mind is our conditioning. So we can get a lot of, you know, negative communication and even just overthinking. And it sort of distorts our guidance. It distorts that gateway and that pathway to these messages of the higher self. So super important, as important as, you know, working out and drinking your water, meditate. Like it's gonna just allow you to access that deep connection and just that deep well of inner peace and joy as well. And when you're present with that and you're present with that connection, you're connected to something so much more powerful and bigger than what you ever imagined. Yeah. And that's really where the magic happens, isn't it?
That's it. Well, the mind is a tool. You know, it's not everything.
No.
It's about having brain and heart coherence.
Yes.
And so many of us have got disconnected from the mind, the heart connection. And actually the heart has a singular point of focus. So it doesn't have conflict like the mind. It only has one point of intelligence. So if we're able to drop into the heart space and to meditate from there, like to really connect in, like even before we started, we said, let's come the heart. The ego wants to come in and go, how do I look? This isn't my side. Yeah. And I watched the mind coming in at the start of like the insecurity coming out and how the mind can play tricks on us. Yes. The mind is the greatest trickster you will ever meet.
It's an illusionist.
Yeah. But it's also a tool.
It is.
It's not something to label bad.
No.
It's a really powerful aspect of being human.
Of course.
And this is all mind. This is all illusion. This is all Maya. You know, when we really drop into unchanging awareness. And I really love that you brought this up about meditation. I'd done a 10-day silent retreat this time last year, which was, 100 hours of meditation. And just to be able to really drop into that space with no phone, no people, no eye contact, just my own intelligence, internal intelligence. And that put me on a new timeline. That really opened up things for me and showed me a lot of truths without any other influences. And that's where I took from that day onwards. I've had a silent meditation practice, and there's so many different types of meditation. And the power of it is we get to change our level of consciousness. And like you said, you really tune into that higher self. And when you tune into that, you become disconnected from the ego identity.
Yes.
And you're just a pure stream of consciousness. You are a radio station for God.
And when we talk about consciousness as well, I feel like this is also so important to elaborate on, because if that word got said to me 2 years ago, it just wouldn't land in my body. So when we speak about consciousness, how would you explain that for someone listening who didn't quite understand what that actually meant?
Well, everything is conscious. Everything has a consciousness. There is nothing that does not have consciousness. Consciousness is life itself, and scientists still baffled by consciousness. But I love that, because I don't really go into the science of it. I go into the internal science of my wisdom and experience. And like we were talking about before, there's different levels of consciousness that we're able to perceive reality from. So you can change and alter your state of conscious through substances, which is why people drink, people take drugs. That changes your state of consciousness. You then have a different experience of reality. You can also change your consciousness through meditation and through doing inner work, through doing the shadow work, because then you're able to see things differently beyond your patterns, beyond your conditioning. And so I was saying before, it's why they say like you wake up, because it's like you're almost asleep.
Yeah.
When we are awake, actually, we are dreaming, but there's a frame. When we go to sleep, we're dreaming and there's no frame, which is why we have different types of dreams. We can have intuitive messages come through in dreams, and there's different levels of dream states too. But once you start to become more aware by maybe watching a podcast or experiencing a healing or having a very painful experience that pushes you to think differently, it expands your consciousness. So you're like the circle of consciousness that you were operating from, that you could only see inside, then becomes bigger. So then you now have this bigger circle of consciousness that can see inside the circle, but can't still see outside of the circle. So the more you expand your level of consciousness through experience and through inner looking, you're then able to have different levels of perspectives. So you're able to hold multiple perspectives rather than just having this one small linear way of seeing and perceiving things, because that's your reality and that's what you believe to be true.
And it's like what you said with wearing the rose tinted glasses almost, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's kind of the same, because you can only see, or you can only understand, or you can only react and experience something down to your level of consciousness. And I think it's also important to note about our emotional centers when we are carrying so much and they're blocked. It's almost like, well, it's our emotional compass, isn't it? So when we are so blocked, it completely takes us off track to our purpose. And the more we balance these emotional centers, the more we're aligned to our soul's path and we're aligned to our purpose. So even if you're feeling like you don't really know what route to take, or you're waiting for answers, or you're doing all this meditation and nothing seems to be happening, it's probably because your emotional centers are completely out of line. And to be able to get to that state, to be in that receiving energy of our higher chakras, our third eye and our crown, we can only open our crown once our lower chakras are unblocked and once we've processed it all. So that's really important as well to anyone listening thinking, well, I've tried this and nothing seems to be working. Have you done the deep work? Have you unpacked all these wounds? Because until you do that, your higher chakras will stay closed. And once we unblock our lower chakras, we fully open our crown, and it's such a magic state to be in, because we will receive so clearly, and everything just feels so right and aligned. And when you're on that path, you don't even worry about what's next. You don't worry about what's going to happen in 6 months' time, because you just have this inner knowing and inner wisdom that you are on your soul's path, and you'll be guided exactly how you need to be.
Yeah.
You know?
I just want to add to that, because I was actually the opposite. My crown chakras and my higher chakras had opened up.
Okay.
And my lower chakras were out of alignment.
Okay.
So, and this is what you'll see in spiritual communities.
Okay, yeah.
Where people become very ungrounded, very disconnected from the physical world.
But they're in this kind of higher...
They struggle with finances. They struggle to operate in this reality
that,
anymore, because their crowns have now been opened.
Mm-hmm.
This actually happened to my mum when I was
Really?
little, growing up. So she actually got put in hospital with a mental breakdown. But it was actually a spiritual awakening that was very misunderstood.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, there was no internet. There was no anything really. There was no support. There was no people. There was no podcast. There was none of this.
There was no intelligence. This information wasn't available.
No, she used to go to the library and sit outside the library and try and read. But her higher chakras got whacked open.
Wow.
And so I went through this as a child, perceiving what she went through, not understanding any of it, judging the whole thing, judging her, feeling so disconnected from what she went through. And it wasn't until I went to Australia, and again, I think it's because it's built on quartz crystal, like the energy of that land and the Aboriginal culture is so sacred and spiritual. So I had a spiritual awakening where things started to happen. Oh. I started having visions. I had an out-of-body experience. And
was you frightened by this, or was you okay with it? Because
because I'd gone through a breakup,
okay.
or I was going through a breakup, and it was helping me.
Amazing.
I had the vision. It was like a premonition of what was going to happen from my dream. And then when I was like, wow, that, like, how did I know that? And then I had more experiences, and I felt like God had graced me with my awakening, because for me mum, she kind of just got opened up. So it happened to me in stages, and I had people, I had the internet. I felt like I was really graced through the process, like I was really, really held. And so eventually me higher chakras were wide open.
Yeah.
And then you just want to tell the world. Like I remembered, like, doing hairdressing and just telling everyone.
Clients, yeah.
And they were like, oh wow. They were like obsessed with it too. And it put me on this path of learning about the law of attraction, learning about myself, questioning things. And it actually healed my relationship with my mum, because I realised she wasn't lying.
Yeah,
and it made me look
on a deeper level
at mental illness in a whole different level.
Right.
And to see how we still do not treat mental illness in the appropriate way.
No.
As I've had friends and clients go through it, where they've heard voices, they've seen things, their higher chakras have opened, but yet they haven't processed the lower stuff. So the emotional trauma that they've not processed completely ungrounds them.
Yes.
And so it really distorts their reality, and it actually prevents them from really tuning into the magic from the higher chakras, because when you're operating from a frequency and a channel of fear, you will then attract fearful situations.
Yes.
So if your crown chakra is opened and you're now connected to spirit, you may now be connecting to darker spirits or false light.
Yes.
So I think that's something really important to acknowledge and to talk
really
about.
Important. Okay, so we're coming to the end. That's went so fast, hasn't it? We could just wrap it on forever. So maybe let's wrap it up with a nice question.
Or some words of wisdom.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Yeah.
Words of wisdom. Do you know what I'd like to maybe ask for the words of wisdom is if you could say anything to your younger self.
Yeah.
What would it be?
Just keep believing in the magic.
I love that.
never stop believing in the magic.
Yeah.
Keep expressing yourself fully. You're never going to be too much for anyone.
Keep shining your light.
Yeah,
And
keep
don't
shining
let anyone
bright.
dim your sparkle. That is so
Never.
important.
Yeah.
Yeah, the same. Don't let anyone dim your sparkle, and just speak your truth always. Just speak your truth and be your authentic self. And everything that is meant for you will come. And it will all be okay.
The truth will set you free.
The truth will set you free. That's one of my favourite sayings now. And just quickly before we wrap it up, so anyone who has listened and wants any more information, you can message me and Sam directly. Our next intake for the programme is in March. So yeah, again, any more information, you can message us and we're happy to help with any questions. I'm sure we'll do another podcast as well, so we can always put a question bit in for our next one, can't we?
Yeah, so the program's running all the time as well. And then obviously, like, we've got our own little creations in the background.
Yes,
and if you're here in Liverpool, like, come connect.
Come and connect with us. Yeah.
Send us a little message.
Yeah, or anywhere in the world.
Yeah. So thank you so
all.
much.
Thank you, Sam.